Well, welcome in everybody. JT here. So glad to have everybody here on behalf of the Ethfinance Daily General Discussion on our Ethereum. And today we are excited. We've got DeFi Dad in the house. Say hello to the world, man.
Yeah, hey JT, thank you for having me. Yeah, hey everyone, thanks for having me.
I was real excited to get you on the podcast today. You're running up the chain, man. Next week we got Justin Drake, and it's just like we're just having a great time over here. Been talking to some amazing guests, and we're on episode 96. It's just incredible. I can't wait to talk about the Edge podcast, but first we'll run through this intro. The Weekly Doots live stream is all about showcasing the best of the week from the Ethfinance Daily on our Ethereum. This is a read-along reaction series, and if you want to follow along, head on over to dailydoots.com, designed and produced by our very own Henny Abu. Big thanks to Tricky Troll for capturing and curating each of these days' Doots. Over 1,000 days he's done this. And the A word for curating this beloved weekly list. As I said, we're on episode 96, running up really fast to episode 100 for this podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us on Apple and iTunes. Just search the Ethfinance EV Mavericks. And we're also available on Libsyn, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. And after the show, you can mint this episode at pods.media/EV Mavericks. If you're watching my second window over here on Discord, make sure you mute that stream to avoid any echoes in your headphones. We got a big crew in the audience today. And as always, if you know somebody who wants a piece of this action, send them my way. Well, let's go ahead and run down the rich list for this week. Starting at number 10, we have JS Tears. He's our weekly haiku guy, daily haiku. Set One Less at 105, Hanny Abu at 106, Crypto Wow Currency at 109, 696 ETH at 111, 137 for Tricky Troll, Harog climbing up the ranks at 146, Benito 2030 at 161, Logri the Bard at 167, and the almighty everlasting man himself, Super Fizz at the top of the charts at 219. We have a total of 1,140 duders as of today. All right, as I said, January 24th, we got DeFi Dad coming on. January 31st, we got Justin Drake from Beam Chain coming on, Marcus Haas from Ethereum Phone, Adam Bloomberg, who is a CFP from Interaxis, and we've got a special guest we're hoping to announce for our 100th episode to be determined on February 21st, and Andy Lower from Scenario Protocol. All right, and a big special announcement. Congratulations to Tricky Troll on reaching 1,000 days of daily Doots. Oh my God, DeFi Dad, I wish I could tell you how he makes the sausage, but basically that guy posts a top 10 of each of the daily's general discussions and makes a top 10 list for each day of the week. And he's been doing that for 1,000 days with just a little tiny help from the community. Amazing accomplishment. And we get all of our content on our Weekly Dudes put together by the A word, which is what we do right here. Octant Epoch 6 allocation window ends in just 20 hours. So if you haven't allocated your GLM tokens to any project, make sure you help out the podcast. You could help Austin ST. I see him in the chat here for the ASTIS relay. And yeah, it's been a hell of a round already. Let's see where the projects are sitting. I wonder where our Dudes podcast is sitting on this thing. I see ETH Staker at 4.304 ETH donated. Maybe there it is. 3.475 ETH donated, 51 donors on the EV Mavericks Dudes podcast. Thanks so much for the people chipping in. Continue to lock up that GLM and contribute to your favorite causes out there. All right. Episode 96, the morning roundup. Here we go. Self-made millionaire chimes in. Ethereum Frank the Tank at 33.9657 on the price. Timbuck9 at 0.32 on a ratio. Uses Bink Video reporting in 3.581 million subscribers to our Ethereum, adding 3,000 subscribers. Our weekly haiku, courtesy of JS Tears. DAO was hacked. Parity Wallet got sacked. ProgPal was not smacked. How does he do it, JS Tears? How do you do it? All right. And we got the stats now with Dr. ETH in the house. Look at these price and supply changeover. This is such a valuable thing he throws in every one of our daily general discussions. The ETF flows and all kinds of sources all in one comment. Thank you so much, Dr. ETH, for that. Check it out in the daily general discussion, or check it out at dailydoots.com. Our shit post of the week, because we always like to start with the best first. In the year 2035, oh God, this is good. I remember this. In the year 2035, society had slipped into a horrifying new reality. Every person, every belief, every institution was reduced to a token on the Ethereum network. The world ran on the social rank index, an unforgiving system where everything from politicians to pop stars, nations to religions was measured by the wealth invested in their tokens. The value of a politician wasn't based on their policies, but on the number of the number of investments they could garner. Leaders like President Grayson, once a beacon of charisma, had become a shadow of themselves, performing for the cameras like desperate influencers, always measuring the worth of their next move in ether. Their worth was no longer judged by the people's trust, but by the wallets they controlled. Pop stars, once a symbol of cultural revolution, were now little more than commodities to be traded. Ariana Nova, the top earning token in the entertainment industry, wasn't loved for her voice anymore. Her every concert, her every social media post was an asset to be bought, sold, and tracked. The richest investors controlled her, pushing her into increasingly bizarre performances as they tried to outbid one another for influence. Jesus Christ, this is a shitpost of the century. Even countries weren't immune. The United States was a bloated behemoth in its tokenization, so over-leveraged that it teetered on the edge of collapse. North Korea had somehow become the top-ranked nation thanks to massive investments from anonymous wallets with dark ties to the underworld. Wealth no longer determined by the quality of life. It determined who got to survive the longest. Borders were defined by token scarcity, and the most prosperous cities had become private domains locked behind paywalls. Religion, too, had been assimilated into the cold, calculating grasp of the text. The Church of the Divine Blockchain promised salvation in exchange for crypto donations. Its ministers dressed in tailored smart suits instead of robes, praying not for the souls of their followers, but for more transactions in their wallets. The faithful were measured by their investment in the system, their spiritual devotion tracked on the blockchain, their worth increasing or decreasing with every shift in the market. Life had become a relentless cycle of accumulation. People no longer spoke of love or loyalty, but of dividends and returns. The richest could buy their way into the highest social circles, where they lived in luxurious towers, insulated from the suffering of the lower-ranked masses. The rest of society had fragmented, the lines between the rich and the poor drawn by the value of their Ethereum tokens. And yet, even as the world collapsed under the weight of its own greed, the question remained: how much were you willing to invest in the future? Because in this new world, popularity and power weren't given, they were bought. And if you didn't have enough ether, you didn't matter. Jeez, that is dark. That's Yeopa. That's an OG from way back. Yeopa is a duder number 7. Well, on that note, let's pivot over to DeFi Dad now. What do you think of that? That is usually shitposts are like a sentence. That was like half a novel.
And JT, who posted that?
Yeopa, Yeopaa. It's up on dailydoots.com. I'll send it.
Hilarious.
Yeah. I'll direct message you so you can get it. Yeah, there's
creative. It might be super accurate too, but yeah, could be foretelling.
Directionally correct.
Yeah, it's like a shitpost that accidentally became a manual. Oh man. Okay, my friend, long time coming. DeFi Dad and myself, we've been around in each other's orbits for a long time across a variety of back channels and Twitter spaces and whatnot. And it's just really exciting to have you here to be the first guest after this. What a weird, last 4 days, the last 72 hours anyway, have just been kind of a whirlwind. So, I'm going to start off with this first question. What had you excited in 2024, and what now has you excited in 2025?
I mean, yeah, there's been so much momentum coming off of the last year. I definitely feel like there's a shift in energy if you're an American citizen or even if you're just a crypto investor anywhere in the world to know that there's a more like pro crypto regime that's just come into office. So that's huge. I think 2024 was a little underwhelming to me considering I thought that like the ETH spot ETF would have had that much more of an impact.
Yeah.
We had a strong finish at the end of the year though, and I think that's carried forward. So I still think that Wall Street hasn't fully come to grips with what's available now through like an ETH spot ETF. Um, I think that like yeah, the regulatory changes though here are just huge. Like there were executive orders the last few days that are undoing a lot of damage. I mean none of this too. Like I can say like for me it's never been about politics. It's been just about having folks that understand the crypto landscape, that understand what is like real crypto, not, just holding a token on some centralized exchange. Like they really seem to understand the need for self-custody, for decentralization. And so like I'm not fully caught up on all the executive orders yesterday, but I mean there's an opportunity now for I think the United States to become a place that founders in DeFi can build and sleep at night, not worried that boogeyman regulators are going to come after them. Um, yeah, just a lot of change. Obviously, a lot of the Operation Choke Point stuff, which I'm no expert in, but like it did immense damage to the crypto industry, and a lot of the executive orders are looking to undo all of that, like harmful rulemaking that happened, over the past few years. So, yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it feels like we have all these tailwinds, to have a huge year. That said, I will say I'll counter all of the positivity with, it's absolutely bizarre to watch an incoming president launch a meme coin. It's exciting, no doubt. Like you kind of step back and it caught me off guard. I thought it was all a scam. I assumed that the post that was on now President Trump's Twitter, I assumed it was all fake. And then to discover that it was real was just sort of mind blowing. I'm sort of torn on whether there's more good or bad that's come out of it. I mean, I know the optics are not great for folks that are outside the industry, but I read something like 500,000 like net new wallets were created to like buy that token. So if that's even somewhat true, if even a fraction of that came on board, I think it signals sort of like mainstream adoption that is coming, not just from this token either. Like it's just it opens the door. There's a lot of people that are like, hey, I, I see this on the news now. I'm interested to learn more. Or like this seems like it's becoming a big enough deal that I should probably take some time to learn about it. And that's huge.
I
So
to echo your thoughts, if there was one takeaway out of all of that, read all the stuff out of the executive orders, was that it galvanized the fact that this market is here to stay, and that the direction is that the United States is going to try to be the leader of it, which, to your point, I think signaled to a lot of people on the sidelines like, oh, that was like a galvanizing moment for the industry, like legitimacy. Yeah. Now, bust open wide the doors of the brand new market. There's no talk about slowing down the crappy parts of what that also brings. So, I mean, I kind of like the wild, wild west, and I kind of like letting people make decisions on their own. I kind of like the idea that you don't have to be an accredited investor to get in the space, but just be prepared that if you're going to go to the casino, you're going to lose most of the time. And most of these products that are out there are designed to take your money. And so there's that whole side of it that also got magnified. And okay, so now so you were saying like 2024 was kind of a sleeper in a way, all the uncertainty and everything like that. 2025, you feel like there has been an actual momentum shift that is real and tangible. And it's not just with the DeFi folks, it's TradFi folks as well. What has you most excited now moving forward in terms of what does this offer DeFi? Are we going to be able to stop feeling the need to use a VPN every time we want to claim an airdrop, or how fast do you think this is actually going to open up? Because, yeah, I mean, the stroke of the pen is one thing, but I feel like there's also going to be a lot of, the bankers are going to be coming to the courtrooms with the countersuits. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Like per usual, everyone is like now wanting to price in like everything positive that could ever happen. I saw there was a lot of talk in the last few days about like a potential Sol ETF getting approved, and like I'm pretty certain that that's not happening, at least for months. But there was like talk of like, could it happen sooner? And even in a few months, that would be an insane thing if you think about how many years it took to get a Bitcoin and an ETH ETF approved. So yeah, I think one thing to be aware of is the bull run. I still think like there will be some major correction at some point, and we've technically been in a bull run if we're measuring from the bottom of the market. We've been in a bull run since, let's say, November 2022. It's actually been quite a long run. I know it's not been the bull run that like some of us that have been, through multiple cycles would like to see. You love to see the rallies that all tokens are able to see gains in, and we haven't quite seen that. It feels like there's been, very specific tokens that have done well throughout that bull. So like, and again, like being totally transparent, I've been pretty disappointed in ETH's run up until now. Like I just feel like it's not been priced at the valuation that I expected it to be at this point. That said, it's an opportunity. I've always thought like there's an opportunity when you know that the fundamentals are extremely, strong for the space to keep building. And when I look at Ethereum, it's one of the strongest ecosystems. I mean, honestly, like I put it is the strongest ecosystem in terms of what's being built, the amount of like developer mind share that's there. I'm not discounting like the likes of Solana, but it's just huge. Like there's a reason it's the number 2 market cap in the world. And to this day, as an investor, I still meet the most interesting builders that are building on Ethereum mainnet or one of the L2s. Like there's so many like novel applications and concepts that are being built there. For whatever reason, I still feel like the scope of what I enjoy using on Solana, it's very narrow. Like honestly, the apps that I've used over the past 2 years have not changed. I'm using like 5 different applications, maybe 10 if I'm being really generous. Ethereum, on the other side, like there's always a new money Lego that's being created, and that's been something as a power user that I felt like I have this edge, like that I know that there's really interesting things that are being built that people want to see built and offer like enormous addressable markets to stand up and again offer us this like new utility on chain. So I guess the question is like when exactly does the rest of the market catch up on this? And the narrative for the past year has been around this underperformance of ETH in comparison to Bitcoin and Sol. But at some point, things change. And I can tell you, if you look back at other bull runs, although this is not guaranteed, there's absolutely a possibility that
Right.
we could run through the bull run and never see ETH play catch up. It's kind of been the same old story of ETH tends to play catch up in that second half. Actually, let's call it the final quarter, final 25% or so of the bull run. So I am still holding out optimism that ETH has a lot more room to run just from like a price standpoint. But man, from a fundamental standpoint, like there's just so much. Truthfully, I cannot keep up with everything being built. I just did a panel discussion today with these guys at Spectra Finance, and they are very similar to Pendle. So you can like earn fixed rates or trade yields. And Pendle alone is a multi-billion-dollar market. These guys have about $250 million, and they're quickly establishing their name. All of that too has grown just since this last spring. So I was like, I'm looking at them. I'm like, this is a great example of like builders I knew from the last cycle. They built this protocol called AP Wine. For whatever reason, they were ahead of the time. Folks were not interested in trading yields back then. They went back to the drawing board, rebuilt this so that it still lives on Ethereum mainnet. And they've got all this usage now. They've got all this like traction and real product market fit. And they're just like one of many teams that I know is rapidly building an application that people would be extremely distraught if it were to go away. Like that to me is like real product market fit. Build something that you have an engaged community of users who would absolutely be like tearing down the door if the website shut off. They'd be trying to figure out like, how do I continue to use those smart contracts or roll it into like a new like app UI? So yeah, I just cannot emphasize enough. Like there's so much being built. And 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I kept track of everything with just tabs open.
Oh,
There was like
I
10 or
believe it.
12 different, right? It was just a few applications that were really working at scale. Now, every time I turn around, like I'm learning about yet another protocol, especially if you expand your universe beyond, like for me, DeFi obviously extends beyond just Ethereum now and like all the L2s. But like when you are open to like going on other chains as well, I mean it's overwhelming. And again, that is I give credit to like what spawned all of that, like that momentum, that innovation that's come to other chains. It started with a small group of builders on Ethereum. So anyways, yeah, end of day too, like stable coins are still one of our
Killer
major,
feature.
yeah, and most of that still lives on Ethereum mainnet. There's
Yeah.
a tremendous amount of trading volume now on like Solana and Base and L2s. But ETH mainnet, at the end of the day, like you sleep well knowing that your liquidity is there. You know that uh, you have a right to those digital assets.
Right.
It's not going to go away overnight. It's something I definitely sleep well on with liquidity there.
Yields are also more stable there. So you get a lot of things like Arbitrum strip incentives or OP incentives on
Yeah,
pools, and it'll last like 60 days or something. And so you end up, if you're playing the L2 game trying to maximize your yield, you're jumping around a lot from incentive to incentive. The yields are just less stable as like the stip incentives in one place end, and the liquidity sloshes around a lot more. So if you're not looking for the high stress game, just parking it on your mainnet and making like 12% stable coins in any of a dozen places, right, is a lower stress option. And often that can make up
yeah,
some difference in just taxes, right? So if you can hold on to a position for a full year, then you're in long-term capital gains in the US, and that gives you a lower tax obligation. So there are financial benefits to it as well. And honestly, we're not at like 120 way right now, right? Like this is 10. I can usually get some point in the week I can usually find like 5 way transactions if I go looking, right? So it's not like it's breaking the bank to transact there. It's a few dollars, right?
yeah.
Maybe a
That
very
that's
expensive is like 20.
that's another part of the story that has been continually misframed over the past year. That hey, L1 is unusable. It's basically something. It's a talking point from
Said by
four
people that
years
never use
ago.
it. Yeah.
That's right. And it's never been let go. I mean, I do the same thing. If I hear someone say, that Solana is unusable, I'm quick to correct them. I'm like, it's very usable. I use it all the time." But like when I am on Ethereum mainnet, I'm rarely subject to gas being above, let's say, like 20 Gwei for a while there. It pumped for maybe like a few months up to like 30 Gwei again, and on rare occasion 50. But it was like, oh, all I have to do is just wait until
Friday
let's
night, Saturday,
like
you know,
8 hours.
just some off peak hour, and you're fine.
Exactly. Yeah. So like I have yeah, I've been personally like rejoicing for that and knowing that a lot of the activity being sucked into L2s, like I personally was only willing to put small amounts of liquidity into L2s until probably the past year or so. I was like, all right, I do believe that Arbitrum, Optimism, and a few others, including Base, have like become um, stress tested enough. That said, I also too I would warn anyone like don't ever let your guard down. I actually went through this exercise just yesterday. There took some small profits for the first time in the bull run, and what I took into stable coins, I was trying to game out like what am I going to do with this because this is money that I personally set aside to pay taxes at some point. So I know, can you believe it? Someone pays taxes. So I put that aside. I'm thinking, all right, well, I can't play games with this because this is money that I will urgently need to pay those taxes. So I'm not going to do anything like super high risk. I want easy, predictable yield from protocols that have been around for a long time on some network that I absolutely trust. And I'll tell you what, after I was thinking through like maybe thing on base, but like I ultimately went back to Old Faithful with like an Aave stablecoin lending pool, just knowing like this is on Ethereum mainnet. This has been around for however many years. I want to earn a market competitive rate from this. I know that I can withdraw it at a moment's notice if I need it. These are all the things running through my head as to like what to do with that liquidity. And again, I think it speaks in a simpler way. It speaks to what's going to go through the heads of big money managers who come to this space and want to put hundreds of millions, billions of dollars to work. They're not going to loop it up, 10x to do some like crazy stablecoin yield
No,
looping.
but if they drop it into Aave and they really tank the supply rate, it just creates a carry trade opportunity. So someone will borrow it from Aave, amplify
Right.
the risk, and go and trade into ALUSD and get some like Ramsey's position on L2 and start making like a 9% carry, and they'll loop it. So someone else can absorb the risk for them, and it'll actually pull up the market rate from that. If they come in and dump a couple $1 billion of stablecoins in, they tank the rate to like 2 or 3% on supply. There are people that will come in and absorb the risk, do a carry trade, and pull that rate back up to at least like the Fed rate, right? In short order. So you don't have to be the one that takes all the risk in order to just get a guaranteed fair market rate, because we have all of these relatively savvy people that understand liquidity markets and how to optimize yield and do that with leverage intelligently, that are going to come in and basically be risk underwriters for you on. You didn't want to hold dinero, or you
Yeah.
didn't want to, right? Like, you didn't want to hold Curve USD because it's less than a year old. Like, that's fine. Someone else that wants to take that risk could basically decide that that extra 7% APR is actually worth it, and basically play a risk adjusted return using whatever their belief is in a fair free market, right?
Absolutely.
Outside of DeFi, because you're saying there's a slow and consistent bubbling of new DeFi applications, and we'd love to have that. But last year there was a couple of course sector wins, right? There was restaking, of course, right, with all the airdrop mania, right? And then
Yeah.
on top of that, there's also DePIN, which is eventually going to go towards restaking. This basically goes down it's kind of like a gig economy thing, right? There's someone that makes an SLA, using capital that they are going to forfeit, like hostage collateral, if they don't meet that SLA criteria. And this basically means that some random person on the internet you've never met can make a promise, and you have some reason to believe they'll follow through on it, right? And that is not just something you can do with the chain. That's things you can do with like off-chain promises, right? And so we see, oh, someone's going to offer a router, and you have Helium. Someone's going to offer you disk space and data availability. Someone's going to offer, EigenDA, it comes up, right? Someone's going to offer you AI services, and so there's going to be like Ritual, right? But it doesn't even stop there. I think that the footprint of the chain interaction, like what is potential there, has really expanded in the last year. And so we can see things that aren't just purely on-chain transactions, but on-chain promises or financialization of off-chain services and impact that we can make in the real world. I'm curious what you think the next wins for this year are going to be. What are the big sector wins that you see lining up for 2025 in the same way of restaking and DePIN last year?
You know that meme with the astronaut where he's got like the gun to the astronaut's head and he's looking at.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always think of that, and I just say it's all DeFi. Yeah, like even though I have some interest in DePIN, I have never lost like this hope that maybe like a Web3 gaming like finally has like its moment. I mean, I know what drew me to this space and what draws people to this space is like, we can wax on about the technology all we want, but people are here to make money. They want to make money. Like they see this as like a vehicle to creating wealth, and the basics of DeFi just continue to like be so appealing. I mean, actually, if you take it back even a step further, just stable coins. Like stable coins alone are just such a great way for you to get a more updated digitally native version of the US dollar. Actually, I have more faith in the stable coins that I have lent right now in Aave than what I have in my actual bank. Like I was thinking about this. Am I going to put, like, there's obviously concerns for anyone about there being an exploit or some maybe like a depeg on chain. But I have way more distrust in my own bank, like locking me out. This has thankfully not happened. Like knock on wood. I'm actually very grateful for the little bank that I've had for years, who's been great to me in terms of, I guess, supporting those crypto transactions going in and out of like an exchange. And to Coinbase's credit, despite all the criticisms I know they've gotten recently, I've actually had an amazing experience with them, also with Kraken. But yeah, I'm probably most focused on that. I'll tell you one sector though I am excited for, but I just don't know if it can live up to the expectations. Like there's so much, typical sort of like pricing of like far into the future for this use case is I love the idea of not just AI agents, like all the speculative mania we've seen with virtuals agents or some of the other like platforms for it. I really do love that idea of your AI agent is kind of like Jarvis from Iron Man for DeFi.
It's a personalized thing, and you can hold on to your own data, and it understands your preferences and your strengths and weaknesses and how to communicate with you, and it serves as a companion with you through life that's continually retrained.
Yeah. My son used Chat GPT to get dad to pay his college bill. I know he's already working on it. So
if you look at the large tech giants, none of them are making a technology stack that allows you to make or train your own model. They're all trying to push their proprietary frontier models and in kind of a land rush or gold rush here, right? So this is something where DAI has a lot more promise than I think all of the Web 2 tech giants, right? Because we can through tokenization have shared ownership of models. And through technology like Sentient, we can add a billing layer onto open source models. So I can, like, if I take Llama as a model and I go and I'm Meta and I put it on Hugging Face, the second it hits Hugging Face, I have forfeited the revenue on that model in perpetuity. Anyone can now download it and do, inference on it, and there's no vector for money to make its way back to me as Meta, right? But with things like Sentient, you can, at the training time, you basically do a signature on every record that's trained. And so then when it comes time to do inference, you have to have a signature of the same wallet or the same private key, right? In order to get anything out of the model. And that means you need the consent of the model owner to do inference with it. You can download the model. You just need like a little bit of information over the internet in order to do inference with it effectively. And the second I need consent, I can add any billing layer I like on there. And the second I have a billing layer that I attach to this thing, we can take the output of that billing layer and put it into a contract, and we can have a token associated with that contract that allows you to pull revenue out of it. And so now you can have a revenue on basically a model on Hugging Face that anyone can download and serve inference on as long as they make an agreement with the trainer, right? So now how do we distribute that token? Well, we can form communities, right? And we can say, 20% are going to the people that are doing data labeling, 40% are the people going to go and run the IT service, do the training, 40% is going to go to the person serving the inference. Some split, we can imagine it, right? And so we could have a community and get like the EF together with the EA and with like, the EV Mavericks here. And we could create, or you can imagine a scenario where we could create a anti-ETH FUD bot that goes out on Twitter and anyone can ping, and you can pay, your whatever microtransaction or subscription fee or whatever, and it will give you paragraphs to address all the Solana talking points about gas being too high, chain being unusable, blah, 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 regulatory FUD, only Bitcoin, whatever. We could train something as a community model and have it be community owned and reward all the people that were responsible for it. And then we financialize it inherently because there's a token on top of it, right? And that's just one use case, but this could be applied to all the specialized knowledge of the world, right? So you have a doctor that has the data set that's going to help an AI learn how to detect cancer. Well, Google's not going to help you train that. And that doctor doesn't have an AI engineer on staff, right? So how do we bring the value of that knowledge into an AI and out into the world? It's not going to be through the Web 2 giants. It's going to be through DAI, right? Because we have the ability to create and monetize community models, right? And financialize those so that you can pay for the training with speculation on the model rather than upfront costs with heavy card hour, like $2 per card hour on 16 systems, and this stuff adds up really quick, right? So all the sort of specialized knowledge of the world, if you want to run a call center in your Visa and you don't have an AI engineer on staff, how do you train the AI with the transcripts of all of your best call center reps? That'd be a community model, basically. You use something like DeepIn for that. If you're a doctor and you want to go and fight cancer, it'd be something like this. If you want to write an anti-ETH FUD bot, it'd be something. If you want to do something that does education for specific topics, be a math tutor, you would do something like this, right? All these occupations, all the specialized knowledge, they don't have AI engineers on staff like Meta does. If you have that skill set, you generally go and make $500,000 a year at Meta. You don't go and work for a recruiting firm that wants to set out form letters that are custom tailored to someone's LinkedIn profile they're reaching out to, right? You don't have that kind of budget. But we can offer training as a service, and we can financialize it in a different way to bring forward that value to whoever wishes to invest in that idea, right? In the idea of education and the idea of fighting cancer, right? So we can financialize that and reduce the upfront costs in exchange for speculation and the long-term revenue of the inference, right? And that'll allow, I think, Web3 to capture the majority of the value of AI in the long term, because the majority of the value is all of this specialized knowledge that for all the tasks, all the informational tasks that people provide, right? So I'm very excited about the potential there as we cobble together technologies such as this billing layer, governance over the data set, tokenization, and also privacy, TEE and MPC, to obscure the queries that they aren't written down and then sold on a data market and weaponized against you, basically forfeiting all of your data to someone that is for profit and therefore in a mercenary sense is incentivized to weaponize it against you. So all these humanity reasons.
Logri.
I'll shut up. It's sarcastic.
My God. He's coming on your podcast. I'm just telling you, you're going to get Logri the Bard.
Oh my gosh. No. I had one follow-up for you.
Sure.
Of all the different decentralized AI related protocols, or like maybe AI agent networks, like one of them that was top of mind for me was Morpheus, and another one is Wayfinder. I'm just curious, like, Logris, are you like, those excite you still? Are you following?
I know about both of them. So If you look at the current DePIN landscape, it's all inference based. There's not much training as a service because training is the limiting factor at a hardware level is much more bandwidth related. So it's hard to decentralize that when you need like 50 gigabytes a second or 500 gigabytes a second of bandwidth. You can't do that between like India and Canada, right? So, in order to train a model, you kind of have to be co-located, and that makes it hard to do decentralized training. So mostly what we have in DeepIn, because it's more accessible at the moment, is either people like Jensen working on very small model training, or people that are doing inference as a service. And in that landscape, the biggest cash cow at the moment is Subnet 19 on BitTensor, but it's not like anyone can serve any model they want. It's very opinionated in how it operates. Morpheus is, in my opinion, here for the longer term because they've written a less opinionated stack. Anyone can come and serve any model they want. They can have whatever price they want. And it's just a market that says, here I'm a provider. Here's the models I'm willing to serve. Here's the rate for session time on them. And then if you want, you can get added to what they call the Lumerin router, which is basically a load balancer of other people that are offering the same model. And so it says, like, here's a pie chart. I just want someone to serve me a Llama 70B or a Llama 400B, inference session, right? And it'll pair you with someone through this kind of load balancer. I find that approach a lot less opinionated. If you don't like their load balancer, make your own, right? You can build it on top of that base marketplace. And that base marketplace has almost no opinions in it. So what can you disagree with? You can add your own billing layer on top of it. You can add your own load balancer on top of it. We can add markets for other things that aren't just AI inference, right? You could easily repurpose what they have for training, for example. So maybe instead of going to what I'd like to see in 2 years, instead of going to the market and saying, I'd like to rent sessions from this person, or I'd like to go and buy card hours on a broker like IO or Akash or Hyperbolic or Spheron or whatever, right? Rather than renting out systems and having to bring your own expertise, people can upload the model, the base model, and the training set and a bid rate. And then maybe a token that would be included in that bid rate. And then providers with the hardware can go shopping for models they would like to invest themselves in and basically sell those card hours by pushing them into that system, rather than having people rent the cards from them. Have the card providers push them into the system in the same way that you push compute into the Bitcoin network, right? I don't have someone come to my computer and say, I'd like to rent your CPU at 1 cent an hour to mine Bitcoin. People around the world just show up and shove computation into the Bitcoin network. I'd like to have an arrangement like that for AI training, so that whoever thinks they have the capacity and believes in the economic value of that model can go and supply compute in exchange for whatever the bid rate is, whether that be some amount of like USDC per hour or per gradient, however we shape up the unit of computation for that, as well as the tokens that would back that model and that community model paradigm that I was describing for you earlier.
Did you get all that?
I'll just add that one thing I'm curious to see play out, and I'm not sure if it plays out this year, is like, will we see more AI agents that are ultimately transacting, on chain, and like we're seeing basically like an increase in however you want to measure economic activity that comes from the AI agents? Or will we have that breakthrough with the crypto UX that, this has been a big talking point the last few years about like, hey, AI could really finally get us over the hump. Like, we don't have to rely on folks having to be so driven to figure out how to use crypto, even despite all the improvements. Like, things are so much easier nowadays than they were many years ago. I don't know.
I think it's a little challenging when you look at a smart contract and it's like decimals 18, right? And if you get decimal 17, whatever you generate, you are let's say you have an amount out on a trade and you're off by a 10x because you're off by a decimal. Just how catastrophic that is, right? AIs are heuristic processes and they don't output things perfectly. And I don't know that I would trust them with transacting my life savings. Even if they were fine-tuned right now, which they aren't, right? So at the moment, most of the AI agents that we have on Twitter, they are just some like prompt engineering on top of an open source model, right? And so you can jailbreak their behavior in very uncomfortable ways. So, for example, a couple months ago, there was someone that like took 5 ETH and they shoved it into a wallet and they gave the AI agent and they said, respond to anyone that tips you and do not give out the money. We want to make money. Don't send out any of the ETH. Only accept the tips in order to interact with people. And then someone like 2 weeks later figured out a way to confuse the AI enough it sent out all the contents of its wallet, right? So hooking an AI directly up to a wallet is something that I don't think is going to end well if you give this to grandma. The second that grandma hooks up to the wallet and someone has some access, hacks her computer and is able to talk to it, there goes her life savings, right? I think we do want something that has an intermediate layer. So what we get instead is the AI is going to output like the basics of a transaction, and there will be something like a Rabby wall that lets you preview the side effects of it, the state changes, and then say like, oh, well, I'm going to lose, at least I'm going to get back this other token. I'm not going to lose everything and get nothing, right? Which is very familiar, right? It's like, I'm not going to do the AI in a smart contract either, right? I'm going to have the AI generate something that goes to the chain. And it's just about what type of error correction mechanism do we need in place in order to enable the AI to make a contribution. In the same way that, look, if I'm coding, I don't just like take the output of the AI and shove it straight into GitHub, right? The engineer is an error correction layer. So in this case, whoever is ultimately legally responsible for the money is serving as an error correction layer for the AI, but the AI is still an assistant that might make them go five times faster, just like an engineer, a software engineer, right? That's where I think we're going to be for at least the next couple of years until we can really fine tune a DeFi specific model that will not mess up with very high certainty and can get insurance against that, right? Once we can start to get into prediction markets, if there is an error with what it does that's covered for someone, and that can be affordable. In other words, the rate on that insurance is like 1 or 2% of the, maybe 1 or 2% of the gains of the money if you're doing DeFi farming, for example.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I like that. I like if someone offered that instead of insuring hey, you put $1 or $100 million into Aave, we're gonna normally what you pay the premium based on the total amount you would have deposited. But if someone was willing to just insure based on what profits you make there while you're in it, yeah, boy, that would be really interesting. I feel like we're at a point we might be able to start offering that with more.
We have all the tools. I mean, most of the insurance markets we have are structured like prediction markets, which is kind of a very clumsy UX. But in this case, it's not as though the user has to actually understand how the internal machinery of the insurance contract works, right? That's up to whoever's underwriting the risk on the other side of the insurance. All they have to understand is if I go through this AI and I consent to deposit through this escrow contract, it's going to skim some fees for doing this UX service for me. But at the same time, I'm going to have an insurance policy. So if there's a loss due to it signing a bad transaction or something, that'll be covered, right?
I think we're getting pretty close to time here with DeFi, Dad. The last thing I'll say is I want to make sure that we get your podcast out there so people can find it. If you go to the-edge.xyz, you can get a free newsletter. Just sign up with your email. He'll drop it right in your inbox. And then he's also got the Edge podcast invested. It's updated weekly, but sometimes I feel like you post more than once a week. So busy man. We don't want to take up any more of your time. I know you said you got maybe an hour, and we were lucky.
I want to take up all his time. Come on back.
Yeah, well, and I think Logri the Bard just got a spot on your pod.
By the way, JT, did JT's sound just go out for anyone else?
No, it was for me.
It was all good. Oh, good. Okay,
good.
Sorry, JT, didn't mean to. I'm I can see your mouth moving, and the sound cut out here just 5 seconds ago. But no, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, to your point, it's a great place just to consume I would say really easily digestible content. By the way, if you work for a team or if it's your own protocol that you're working on, don't hesitate to reach out. We want to host as many guest posts there as possible. So a lot of the content is, it starts with Nomadic and me that are partners on it. So their podcasts, their written interviews, their editorials. I mean, it's content meant to bring you up to speed on pressing topics in crypto and DeFi. But we are so grateful to host guest posts. So if someone's like, hey, I got a new protocol, it's exciting, we're trying to get the word out.
Yeah,
we really have, there's no strings attached. Like, we're hungry for folks to join us, and love to just be helpful to amplify that information to our audience. So reach out anytime there. And otherwise, if you follow me at DeFi_dad on Twitter. But JT, anything else here before we go?
Well, I was going to mention, if you're looking for content, scour the daily. Join the daily thread. I know you don't have a Reddit handle, but it's a good time to get one. We've had several days now where we've had over 500, 600, 700, even 1,000 comments in the daily. Ever since Ethfinance closed and we came to our Ethereum, the daily's been hopping. And there's like a weekly developers thread. We're trying to populate that. Any of your teams that would just want to come and spam the project, any of those teams out there that they can go to the weekly developers thread, join the daily discussion. Feel free to reply to people and ask them to come contribute over onto your podcast site and your newsletter. I'm sure we've got plenty of Mavericks who would love to contribute and cross-pollinate. And please don't be a stranger. We'd love to have you back on the show sometime. Okay, he's heading off. I think we're ready to roll into this week's Doots. Are you good to go? DeFi Dad, you're muted. All right, he's going to head out. Thanks so much for stopping by. We're going to go straight on over to dailydoots.com and get on with our list for this week, the 96th episode. DC Investor stops by to say hello. He says, hello, guys. Hope everyone here is well in this new but old home. I wanted to pop in today to share a few thoughts. I'm encouraged by Vitalik's post, and post the X link, suggesting that change is coming to the EF leadership. I agree with Joe Lubin's comments on X.com insofar as the environment has changed a lot and EF leadership needs to evolve with it. I think Vitalik's suggestion that we bring more technically capable leadership into the Ethereum Foundation is the right move. I've made it no secret that I think Danny Ryan would be a great choice to lead the EF. Not only is he very capable technically, but he also understands the Ethereum ethos extremely well, respects its process of rough consensus, and is humble enough to engage others to support him in the areas where he may not have expertise without being threatened by them. If Danny is truly interested in such a role, then we'd be very lucky to have him. But I wanted to be clear that any kind of co-lead structure, or a structure which has Danny as CTO to someone else being the ED, would likely be counterproductive. A kitchen cannot have two head chefs. On balance, Danny has credibility from the community and core devs. He's a logical choice, and I hope Vitalik will make the right one here. And while I don't love the framing in the second half of Vitalik's post, I generally agree with most of it. EF should not be doing, quote, lobbying, which would involve engaging with legislators and policymakers to explicitly influence policy and legislation. However, I do think that EF should not be afraid to talk to governments and businesses where appropriate, to explain Ethereum's differentiated value prop and encourage them to build on it where appropriate. There is a difference between advocacy and education and lobbying. I hope that this is a distinction which the future EF leadership understands. And with respect to actual lobbying, I'd love to see the industry, apps and L2s fund an actual Ethereum-focused lobbying organization to influence in DC and beyond. I think where EF can add most value in this very competitive environment is the following. Number one, enhance efforts to support technical development to ensure Ethereum remains competitive in the blockchain space. Right now, in my opinion, this means helping the community to make tough decisions about Ethereum's future in a timely manner and suggest appropriate prioritization of development. EF has always done this, but it will never do it better with deeper technical expertise at the top. Number two, redouble advocacy efforts to ensure that the Ethereum and ETH value propositions are well understood. We've outsourced all of this to the podcast layer, and in my opinion, that's been disastrous. Communicating about what Ethereum does and what its future looks like will not compromise credible neutrality. We need this now more than ever. Number 3, lead by example by actively using Ethereum and demonstrate to others how it can change the world. This means using and talking about the apps, not acting like the app layer doesn't exist or expressing disdain at the apps which currently exists. I think ecosystem development has come far in the past few years that I question how much more is needed. This needs to be refocused to a handful of priorities which we feel the open market cannot address effectively. It's hard to critique current efforts here by the EF because much of it is opaque, but I'd much rather put 10x more effort into dev and advocacy is my 2 cents. As for Vitalik's other points, some sort of trolling, LOL, I think the message is that the EF is not going to morph into some super dominant organization. That's fine, and that's not what we need for a credibly neutral network. But I'd love to see an organization focused 100% on making sure Ethereum wins the role of becoming the world's computer and settlement layer and is not passive about centralized competition running the entire narrative and adoption cycle. In my opinion, this means burning harder than ever before on the priorities I mentioned above and jettisoning most everything else. I hope you are well. I'm still super optimistic about the Ethereum ecosystem, and change to the factors I mentioned above can only be a good thing. My boy, DC investor coming in hot. What a legend. For those of you who are new to the podcast, new to our Ethereum, or just new to all of Ethereum in general, DC Investor has been a long time advocate. He was an OG on ETH Trader back in the days and our Ethereum back in the days. I give him credit for squatting on the name Ethfinance on Reddit. He and I spent time on the phone getting together on breaking away from ETH Trader into Ethfinance. So I pinged him in a back channel. I'm like, dude, the daily's living life right now. You should come drop by and say hi. And he dropped that little banger for all of us. I hope he continues to come around. Thanks so much, DC Investor. All right. I don't really want to go into all of that unless anybody in here wants to make some comments about the Vitalik tweets and the whole Ethereum Foundation. I hate to use the word drama, but god dang, here we are. I'm optimistic. I think the etherealized thing that just dropped is kind of proof pudding that things are going to be changing moving forward. Joe Lubin's becoming more active too, so I think we're going to be fine. It's just, it's hard to do hard things and please everyone. All right,
Go
ahead. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I love it. Go Etherator. Oh my God, dude, talk, baby.
What's up? So I think it's interesting. It in a way, it's actually really good to see people get frustrated and riled up. It's because they care. Even like Eric, kind of taking space or whatever you want to call it. Even that, I mean, it takes a lot of passion, to do that. And his values, I don't think have changed. I think he, in one way, shape, or form, is let down. And so this is the best way that he knows how to carry on. And I think a lot of it did come to a head. I mean, I listened a little bit to the the Bankless episode today. Where did you see that? Where he got on and talked to David about it.
Eric did?
At all. Yeah. Well, he was supposed to. It wasn't about that, but I think he was scheduled to be on.
Okay.
And so they just kind of happened to touch on it. But he kind of explained his perspective, and he didn't sound like he wasn't being like obtuse or anything like that. He said that this is things that he's been thinking for a long time, and it kind of came to a head. So I think it's relevant. I think it's important. I think a lot of people were shocked, including myself, when it's kind of a double-edged sword, because everybody wants everybody looks to Vitalik to be a leader, and it's like when he asserts his leadership, and people are like, oh wait, we're supposed to be we're really pioneering things, and it is exciting and dangerous, but one thing that, I mean, I am encouraged that we have seen, people aren't laying down. Like, people are stepping up and making their voices heard, and not just demanding change, but doing something about it, like etherealize and all this stuff. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I'm personally optimistic.
Yeah, me too. And it's really good to hear your voice in here, by the way. Please don't be a stranger.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm normally working around. I think the time changed, right? So
Yeah,
typically that was my work time, but yeah, I might be able to squeeze in some time here or there to show up. Yeah, I mean, I still watch them. I just, watch them on YouTube or after the fact.
well, it's cool to see you here and hear your voice. And yeah, we moved it to 2 Eastern. We just felt like there was going to be better overall engagement for people rather than I think it was noon Eastern, because I kind of figured out, like, most people kind of screw around the second half of their workday on Friday anyhow.
That's about right. Yeah.
Let's capitalize on the slackers,
Yeah, this is the slacker call. The slacker call.
Oh man. Yeah. So
chance for our friends in our community to get together and hang out.
Yeah. 100%.
That's the euphemism for it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's layer 0. Don't you know how important that is? Come on, man.
All right. Well, moving on down the list here. Yeah, I'll say it again. It was really nice to see DC back in the daily. It's like comfortable shoes. The only hodler in how do you say this? CUAU. I know I'm saying this wrong. Thinks we lost the plot, while user Pocket Waylord and user Curious B both provide their counterpoints. The only hodler in Quao is a duder number 10, and the other two that were cited here, Curious B is a duder number 6, and Pocket Waylord is a duder number 7. Let's get into this. Hey, some of you might remember me from the old sub. Got in on 2017, got drained stupidly, my fault completely a year and a half ago, lost almost everything. Stepped back for a while, managed to get a nice job. Good for you. Got back in the game. I am not close to where I once was, but I'm getting there. My comment here is just to state that I'm beginning to lose faith in this space, not because of the monetary aspect of it. Despite what I'm reading on other comments on here, I feel like we're doing the same we've always done. Underperform most of the time, and then a fast pump up to track. But just because it just seems that the values we once held high have vanished. We were supposed to be revolutionaries. Yeah.
Fatality.
We were supposed to become a new monetary system, something that the banks and the oligarchs couldn't control. So we could never have such a catastrophic management or uneven distribution of wealth as we had back when the idea was proposed. Instead, I believe we worsened it. Grifters, gamblers, plain out garbage influencers preying on the weak-minded, jobless folks who have 1,000 in their bank accounts and are desperate for 100x that they feel everyone is getting, only to find out that he lost everything on the latest crypto Ponzi. Banks and oligarchs are celebrated when they pump our bags because F it. We were never about changing the monetary system. We just wanted to be part of the big boys club. People mad at their investments that made them 59% yearly profit ETH because what the hell? That other dude made more, 59% profit, and we're whining because some Ponzi is making more. Do you notice the greed? It was naive to think we were going to change the world. Socioeconomic structures never change. Only the top ones up top change every now and then. But I never thought I would one day feel disgust of the microscopic part I've played in this game. I'm here. I'll stay. Money is money, but we've lost the way. Oh my goodness, that's kind of sad.
Yeah, I don't think that crypto is ever going to solve wealth inequality.
Yeah.
Right? It was never about that. It was about equal access to opportunity. It was never about equal outcomes.
We'll see what Pocket Waylord had to say. The grifters and the influencers are always the loudest. Please do not confuse them for the crypto ecosystem as a whole. It may not seem like it, but many people within the crypto ecosystem are in it to revolutionize the monetary system. They are just drowned out by bots and pump and dumpers and shit on with negative engagement, which has been proven to have much stronger psychological impact on the human brain. We are still here building. And Curious Bee says, consider the bigger picture. Crypto isn't changing the monetary system yet, merely exposing it for the empty shell that it is. How exactly did you expect the transition to go? Hi, we're here with a new, better monetary system. Oh, that's great. Here's the entire world's wealth, power, and control. The world is being thrown into chaos due to extremely rapid, synchronized global technological, economic, and cultural shifts. Expect the monetary transformation to be anything but smooth and predictable. My read is that the transition is starting by exposing the absurdity of the current system. Each time the silliness gets ratcheted up a notch, outside and inside crypto. Think ZERP, UBI, GME, FTX, Doge, WIF, FART, and Trump, etc. It's another signal that the current system is broken and that we are collectively reverting to a more primitive state of trying to figure out really what money is. On the micro level, I think Ethereum still represents the best values in terms of ethical alignment with cypherpunk roots, and VB's latest reaffirms that. Ethereum's core founders have all made their fortunes already, and as anyone of sound ethics realizes that beyond a certain point, money doesn't matter, and they have exactly zero interest feeding into speculative bubbles over and over again. They're doing what they want. Token price be damned. If you're here to make quick gains, you made the wrong choice. Technical and ethical arrogance does not guarantee future returns. Just ask XMR holders. If you're here to embrace a monetary revolution, zoom out and chill. These things take decades, and nowadays everyone's attention is obsessing over the day-to-day. I love it. Great job. Yes. So I'm with Hodler and Cow on this. Like, if you let yourself just sit in the moment with the way things are, looking at all these race cars zooming past you, you feel like, what am I doing? Like, they're making all this money and they're doing all. It's like, yeah, well, the chain may stop. I feel like this post here, it would be hard for somebody to write it literally today, after what has transpired in the last 48 hours. Because I just feel like I wanted to say this when DeFi Dad was here to see what his response is, but we ran out of time. Was basically
I ate up all the mic time. Sorry.
Well, he was talking about the stable coin, and the one thing I wanted to mention was, I feel like with the executive orders that we've seen, I feel like the US dollar as a distributed stable coin, I think the United States is signaling to the world, hey, we're going to make this easier. And I think other like international entities are going to want to embrace more of that tokenization of the dollar. That, like the dollar is still used so much. I'm wondering how much of this money remittance stuff is going to get ramped up now that there's going to be a lot more ability for companies to use stable coins abroad. I don't know. Just kind of galvanize. I feel like it's the evangelization of the US dollar by opening up the markets, taking off the restrictions, and trying to get some regulatory clarity going, which I don't know if we'll get that. But by doing those things, you're saying United States is wanting to work with you, use our money to do it. I don't know. And then in walks the tariffs. I don't know. Okay. Lugry, I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to add on to this. The plot. Have we lost the plot? I like the two replies as well.
So I think there's been a gradual shift. It hasn't just been in this cycle, right? If you go back to 2021 with all the NFT mania and everyone's basically no one cared about trying to create genuine value or communities or media empires or anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the majority of what got the attention last cycle was equally inane as airdrops were this cycle, or as meme coins.
Go back to ICO.
Meme coins are. Well, ICOs, I think most ICOs at least had a white paper that said they were going to do something.
I'm wondering if we're going to see that again. I wonder if the history repeating.
I think that we will. I hope that, and I was writing a piece on tokenization. So I had a Weekly Doots a couple episodes ago on this, but I hope that we go back and get more ICOs, and I hope that those ICOs are structured in a more healthy way that prevents fraud and abuse than they were last cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see more than just a static ETH ratio trade. I'd like to see tokens that are sold in tranches. So you have like a series ABC style system like VCs use. I'd like to see the existing holders of the tokens be able to vote when the criteria have been achieved that unlocks the next tranche to be sold. So have some governance over the release of the next sale. I'd like to see more accountability for founders. So they can't rug repeatedly under new aliases or whatever. All these things. So I would like to see a lot of things to prevent the fraud and abuse. But I think that ICOs are fundamentally an honest approach to just crowdfunding for a new idea.
Yeah, I'm with you. It really was an incredible mechanism, for better or for worse, of course. I'm wondering if we're going to get a resurgence of that. It's pretty neat. And we never even touched on tokenization of assets under BlackRock. Larry Fink, that was the other thing I wanted to throw out there too, was like, he wants a rapid adoption through the SEC or something to where they can.
They want to be able to put stocks and treasury bills directly on the blockchain, which seems sensible enough to me. You have to have some clarity over whether it's considered property or whether it's considered a bearer asset. These are important for, let's say, when someone goes bankrupt, who gets what share of what, like who's left holding the bag. This legal distinction really matters. So we'd like to see some clarity on that. And obviously, I'd like to be able to see more of the money that stable coins like USDC are holding and earning as interest flow back to USDC holders or USDT holders in the case of Tether. At the moment, they can't because that would make those a security. Or they think it would. So basically, the SEC, in its effort to protect investors, has forced companies to deny them the money, the interest on their own money, which sounds about par for course for the last administration, right? So I hope that we can get some changes to that. I think that we have some large financial players that have a vested interest in being first to market once the dam breaks. And so it's going to be a trickle and then it's going to be a flood. Once someone's taken the legal risk and demonstrated that it's the new administration is not going to be cracking down on it. Once the legal ambiguity has been resolved, probably by a report from the committee run by Senator Lemons, whatever, or the new panel put together by the SEC run by Hester Pierce. Once we get some clarity from both of those, even just reporting, not even new laws, hopefully we can see a lot of innovation and launches by institutions over the next year, probably in the second half of the year.
Yeah. And we didn't even, what was it? Oh, staking ETFs. That's the other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just right? It's like a,
we can't offer you the interest on your own money because that would be bad for you. We have to protect you from that. There's zero reason you shouldn't be able to have a staking ETF in the US.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy. It's crazy. Everybody was hoping for a cupcake, and with like the new administration coming in, and ended up being like a 4-layer wedding cake for 1,000 people.
Yeah, so, it's been a rapid pace of stuff, right?
What did
multiple new committees tasked with providing clarity, repeal of the SOB 121, executive orders restricting the use of CBDCs or the development of CBDCs, the pardon of Ross, just a flurry of activity that's really even a commitment to put together a plan to create a strategic digital assets. It wasn't called a reserve. It wasn't a Bitcoin strategic reserve. It was a digital
stockpile.
Stockpile. Yes, thank you. So even the fact that came out and didn't just say Bitcoin, right,
Mhm.
is obviously extraordinarily positive. If you pair that with, I mean, take it as a weak signal, but if World Liberty Financial holds a lot more ETH than Bitcoin,
Yeah.
and you want to assume that Trump is a very self-serving person, which seems to be a common criticism online. So if that's your prevailing belief,
Mhm.
then he believes that ETH is going up more, right?
Well, yeah.
Or he believes he can make ETH go up more. Take your pick, but either way, it would seem to be a good time and place to invest in Ethereum.
Yeah. It's just one smash after another. And probably the biggest executive order of all was the fact that he's going to lift the ban on menthol cigarettes. Anyway, so we'll move on. Lucky Mons summarizes the latest meme coin shenanigans. Oh boy, this will be good. And issues a warning. What an effing time we live in. 1.5 days ago, Trump, this is like, it is a mind melt the last 4 days. 1.5 days ago, Trump launches a meme coin on Solana. It blew upwards so hard, it became the number 2 meme coin within 36 hours. Everyone and their mom is celebrating the death of ETH and glorifies everything Solana. Today, Trump's affiliated World Liberty Financial buys 20 million in ETH, plus the whole ETH community is triggered from yesterday and the EF talks and rumors. Everyone absolutely tooting the ETH marketing bullishness horn. As an ETH maxi, that latest thing is great to see. It's time to get vocal. As you all were there to warn me for the Luna UST saga, I am here to warn you not to follow everything Trump does blindly. People are buying, number one, people are buying World Liberty Financial, Trump's DeFi token on ETH. The proceeds are getting converted to ETH, but the token isn't transferable. And the terms say it won't be for a minimum of a year and likely indefinitely. Don't touch it. That's from another EV Maverick. Number two, no information on this site is intended to be an offer to buy or a solicitation of an offer to sell any tokens where not permitted by applicable law. That's from below the website, the below website. And number three, the URL from their website is token sale. And the team literally consists of the people who will introduce the applicable law. It's an insane grift, laughing my ass off. Keep your ETH and ETH ICO coins. You will be fine. Chase the good stuff. The new base Warpcast projects, other L2s, projects with more innovation, public goods, etc. We will win in the end. And Lucky Mons, I hope I'm saying your name, Lucky Mans, Deuter number 22 for this week. User Red Corneas is glad to see the EF leadership discussions happening. Red Corneas is a Deuter number 7. The increasingly vocal demand for changes at EF are insanely bullish for me personally. It has been beyond frustrating to get bullied for years by self-serving, fraudulent venture capitalist liars like Kyle Samani so they could serve up their propagandized slop about how superior their centralized casino chains are, while EF leadership sits around and does nothing. I'm all for taking the high road against idiots, but sometimes you have to fight. You can't soy your way into a financial revolution when grifting psychopaths are trying to crush you out of existence. It's time to be competitive and punch back. Fight for the ideals and fight for what we've been building. So glad to finally see this conversation happening. I will definitely say that is one side of that argument. I'm not going to endorse one side or the other because I feel like it's, if anything, this whole blow up with what Vitalik tweeted and the idea of the community push for Danny Ryan, I think everybody got kind of shaken out of a slumber. And for regardless of what side of that coin you're sitting on, everybody's thinking now. And I feel like things are pushing and we're going to get on track.
If nothing else, the recent week has sparked a lot of imagination.
I love it.
Right? Even out of the uncertainty, people are like, well, what if? Right? There's a lot of infectious enthusiasm that comes out of
angst,
daydreaming, speculation, these what if kind of thoughts.
Emotion.
What if the National Strategic Digital Asset Stockpile assets mirror the World Liberty Financial Reserves?
Mm-hmm.
What if there's more ETH in there than Bitcoin? What if we get an ETH staking ETF? What if we we can see the return of ICOs? What if banks are now allowed to hold Bitcoin? It's no longer treated as a liability because the SAB 21 bulletin rule has been repealed. What if so many other things that have been held back by legislation? What if so much of the innovation that has fled the U.S. in the last decade starts to return? What if,
Yeah, those are all good questions, but pertaining to this post specifically, it's about what if the Ethereum Foundation did more marketing. And I think a lot of people, I think some people assume that the EF should be the entity that does the marketing, and I'm not.
Well, what I'm saying with all that is the ground for, like, before, you could go and talk to all these industry players and be like, yeah, that's nice and interesting, but I can't, right?
Mhm.
Like, but there's much more fertile ground as of this week.
Yeah.
For not, I wouldn't call it marketing, but advocacy.
Well, the etherealized stuff was funded by Vitalik right on the heels of, him getting upset for whatever reason with Aya and all that stuff and the way people were treating her. And I get it. Comes out and the etherealized stuff is still hitting the presses. It's pretty new, but directionally it's addressing a lot of the things you were just mentioning. I'm hoping that now there's a whole nother roundtable of people that are going to talk to regulators, that are going to talk to companies, that are going to talk to external governments outside the United States and beyond. So I'm just.
Well, do you mind if I
Fine.
chime in?
Please.
So one thing I was thinking about it, I was kind of, I don't know if you guys are like me, but I'll be in the shower or like laying in bed and I'll randomly think about stuff. And I'm like, huh. I was thinking about, to what extent do we need, and I'm not saying advocacy or whatever is not important, but if you have guys like Larry Fink already saying he wants to tokenize real world assets ASAP, what that means to me is he's saying he knows where he wants to go, he knows what he wants to do, and he's not thinking about, I got to figure out what chain, so those people have already kind of, made their decisions. They're really just waiting on the clarity for it. So my one concern, and this is my shower thought because I could just really ramble forever, but my one concern with that whole side of it is, tokenizing real world assets, as I understand it, they're basically saying we're going to unlock equity and, we're going to unlock liquidity in different assets that we've not been able to unlock before. And that's very powerful, right? Like,
maybe not. So you could have a ERC20 that is fully KYC'd and is only accessible to all the people that already could access it through a brokerage. But
Okay.
even still, you would have instant settlement and finality on those assets. There's no T+1, T+2 settlement. You would have a full accounting of who owns one at every given time, so you wouldn't have the same degree of rehypothecation, dishonesty. You'd remove all the possibility of fraud with those assets, people claiming they have shares that don't really exist, or accounting failures. You would have 24/7 markets. So if you're a person who could access the market, but you're, I don't know, just living in Mongolia or something, it's not exactly a convenient hour to operate on New York time, right? So you increase convenience. Presumably, having things up 24/7 means that there is a more fair response of markets to news, because news happens 24/7, but the markets are only open 8 hours a day. Some days of the year, right?
Yeah. No, I think there's definitely a lot of it. I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head.
It's not just expanding access of who can use it, or even changing the permissions over it. You can have an access that has full clawback and full centralized permissions, right? And BlackRock could mint shares that are actual shares, not like they hold a share and then they mint it, kind of like a poker chip, or you have a trading desk. They could mint the actual legal share on the blockchain if the SEC gives the green light.
I guess my point was, maybe I didn't do a good job explaining it, probably, but what I was referencing was not so much who has permissions, but really the idea of unlocking, and I could be ignorant to this, that this is already possible, but like, for example, Elon Musk has built, a ton of shares of Tesla, and he can borrow against his net worth, right? So as I understand it, like I can't do that with whatever stocks I own today. But if
You
we
can
tokenize,
they're called Lombard loans. You can, but
okay,
this is something where do you have the right lawyers and trust structures and time and
hmm
enough wealth to make it worth
right,
getting in the door? If you don't have $1
hmm
million of assets that you're trying to do
right,
this with, it's not worth their time to set up all the structures to initiate a Lombard
exactly,
loan for you. But
right,
what DeFi does is it opens access. Yeah, it
hmm
provides equal opportunity of access.
yep,
So if Elon Musk can do some tax avoidance scheme, then so
hmm
can you, right?
right,
If
exactly,
Elon Musk can get a collateralized loan on his assets or his Tesla shares, then so can you.
hmm
So equality of access of opportunity makes a inherently more fair and less oligarchic, less corrupt world.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. I guess my one concern with that is if there's not an appropriate level of, I guess, education on it, it could literally create a massive, and I could be overestimating it, whatever. It could create a massive bubble to where people are like, oh my gosh, I have all this liquidity that I didn't think I had. And all of a sudden they're like nowadays when people borrow, they're most likely borrowing against their their home, like they're a HELOC or something like that. But all of a sudden, if they can borrow against every single asset that they have, and they don't do it responsibly, it could not end well.
A fool and his money are soon parted. Sure, there you have to use financial tools responsibly, and there's people
mhm,
that. So, is it the government's responsibility to stop you from being able to use those tools to protect you? Because
right.
you can go to a casino, you can go and buy a lottery ticket and throw your money away on long shot bets. You can go to the meme coin casino and throw your money away on long shot bets. Why can't you lose money on options or on a Lombard loan on your stock? What's the principal difference
Oh,
in what
Logri,
the
I
US
can
is
lose
protecting
money,
you
and I
against,
do
right?
it regularly.
Yeah, people do. But my point is philosophically, why is the government in a position to prevent you from
Right.
using a Lombard
No,
loan, but
I
not in a
agree. Yep.
position to prevent you from buying lottery tickets and
Mhm.
flushing money away on provably worse gambles, right?
Mhm. Yep. No, I know. Yeah, I agree. I know
I,
exactly what you mean.
I consider myself the Charlie Brown of crypto. My motto is don't worry about rug pulling me. I'm perfectly capable of doing that on my own. Oh man. Yeah, good stuff, guys. I'm gonna move on down the list. Here we go. User Harog explains who Aya Miyaguchi is and her role at the EF after a question about her. Harog is an obvious OG legend up on the top 10 on the Daily Doots website. Aya Miyaguchi took the executive director's position over from Ming Chan. Ming had the position since the launch of Ethereum in 2015 until 2017 or 18. If you want to learn about a controversial executive director, you can read up on Ming Chan and how most people felt about her. Nevertheless, she was able to clean up the EF finances quite a bit and get some sorely needed structure into the foundation. When Aya took over, pretty much everyone was relieved. With Aya, internal power struggles seem to have calmed down massively. She was able to unite the pretty wide range of EF people under one vision, which is honestly pretty impressive. She was an extremely good choice for that time period. That does not mean that I think she should stay at that position forever, and personally, there are very few people I respect more than Danny Ryan. When I heard him taking a break, that was one of the sadder days for me. If we would get Danny at the helm of the EF, I would be very happy. But at the same time, I would keep my respect for what I have managed to do within the EF. Just to say I'm neither associated with the EF or met Ming Chan or Aya Miyaguchi personally. All my knowledge came from a handful of books written about the early Ethereum history and blog posts from various people. Harag, I know I speak for myself and probably several other people will take your word for it. You always have a very fair take on things, I've noticed. And that's why you are up in the top 10 on the Daily Dudes website. User Yo Ho asks why all the scapegoating and drama about the EF, and user Harog gives an insightful reply. Well, gee, here he comes again. He's double duded on the weekly. Yo Ho does not have a doot number next to them. How? Oh, this needs to be changed. He got on the weekly. I wonder why that didn't work out. You know what? I'm going to just give him 2 to be safe. because that must have been an oversight on my part. And then user Harog replied, okay, here we go. Why is X such a dramatic place? Looking at all the drama unfolding there, yes. Everyone is frustrated with a continuous ratio decline. Yes. Competition is increasing, or at least the perception, and things need to change over time. But this straight attack on the EF just over the last weeks, as if they are fully responsible for the decline, they are now seen as the scapegoat, whereas there are way more factors playing along. On top of it, changes have been announced. Give it a couple of months to see if things have turned better. If not, you have a valid reason to further complain and respectfully propose those alternatives. However, the bullying, as if I, as the sole responsible person for one's ETH not being at 5K so they can cash out, is just out of place. Harog responds, because the algorithm is looking for and actively rewards maximum emotional outrage. You can argue it has increased since Twitter has been sold, but this has always been there. I'm gonna take the opposite side of that. I think it's always been there on every platform. In my view, most, if not all, social media do this to a certain degree because the emotional angle is the easiest one to capture people. Some people exploit this explicitly, such as Max Resnick, while others are just swept along with the tides. This implicit optimization for outrage increases key performance indicators for the social network in the short term, but destroys communities in the long term. The destruction of communities is what we have seen in the last half a year or year in Ethereum. As an outsider, it is bewildering to see long-term community members like Eric leaving over something insignificant as who is ED in the Ethereum Foundation. Might very well be that he knows more than I do, but how it looks overblown from the sidelines. I don't understand the writing here. But howdy, it does look like that's overblown from the sidelines. The same discussion style swept over from Twitter, and even longstanding community members make statements here which are alienating, disrespectful, and sometimes technically wrong. Okay. I don't have any opinions on, I'm sad about Eric too. Okay. I don't know if anybody else has anything they want to add to that. Ben, did you want to chime in? Because I hear your mic's open. Okay, moving on. The A word. Love it. Glad you're on the list, buddy. Danny Ryan. Okay, so he's quoting Danny Ryan off of X.com. Just to fill you in, I left the EF last year due to health issues and in an attempt to clear my head after working my ass off exclusively at the EF and on Ethereum for 7 years. I stepped outside and the EF and broader Ethereum ecosystem moved on without missing a beat. New leaders stepped up and the machine kept running. I got the much needed time to reflect without being so close to the gears of the machine. In my reflections, I got excited about the EF potentially entering a new era, not a full departure from prior strategy and philosophy, but an evolution to meet the world as it is today and as it has greatly changed over the past decade. I opened a dialogue with Vitalik and others at the EF about such changes and the possibility of being involved in this new era. These discussions started long before this past week and are ongoing. I'm grateful for the overwhelming support I've received from Twitter and many longtime friends and colleagues. However, some of the discourse has turned counterproductive. These are real people attempting to sort through and do what is best. With it, without me, the EF is evolving and for the better. You've been heard, but vitriol is ultimately harmful to this process. I believe in a community that fights its battles with respect and reason. So fight for what you believe in, but please take the high road. And that is from Danny Ryan, courtesy the A word. User Dr. Eth. Bum, bum, bum. There is an overwhelming amount of BS and information on X aimed to attack the EF and Ethereum in general, and I've always had a strong feeling that this is either partly or completely funded by competing projects like Solana. Here. There's a very strong financial incentive in trying to take activity away from Ethereum, controlling your own validator set on your own blockchain. It's all taking sweet retail money with no penalty and no likelihood of backfiring. The misinformation campaign is absolutely massive. Spans crypto newspapers like CoinDesk, lots of X accounts, mobs of bot-like users spewing the BS, all to control the narrative that Solana is very much the thing that will replace Ethereum. As with every cycle, except this time with a lot more money. Honestly, a complete embarrassment for the industry. We saw this BS happen with EOS at a smaller scale in the 2017 bull market, then Solana, Terra Luna, Avalanche, and all the other horseshit chains with under 30 validators in 2021. Now again with Solana.
Fatality.
I hate sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but it's so obvious. Every time I take even 5 minutes of my valuable time to read some shitty article from any crypto newspaper, there is some kind of diss at Ethereum and some kind of praise at Solana. Money has corrupted the industry just like it corrupted Wall Street before the 2008 financial crisis. One day, this industry will be large enough, and this kind of crap will still be tolerated so much, so to cause such a big reputational hit that we might take decades to recover from. Man, 11, that is coming in hot, Dr. Eth. He was in the chat earlier. I think he had to take off. That's, it's you can't be complacent. You can't sit on the sidelines forever. Like at some point, like the lobby wins, Betamax was superior to VHS. Laserdisc was better than both of those, but ultimately, they went the way of the dinosaur. Although it is kind of funny, vinyl is still pretty hot, and that's like that's the oldest of them all. That's like the Ethereum of music.
Mm-hmm. Do you mind if I say something about that?
Please, no, you don't have to ask permission. Jump in.
Yeah. So I mean, I share that sentiment with you. I feel like, or with the poster as well, I feel like so much of the narrative is controlled, especially when you take into the context of the way that Vitalik and, and the EF have positioned themselves where they want to be more hands-off. It's like, well, if the leader is hands-off and there's no one really, you have this guy like 100 miles in front of you and there's nobody monitoring the race, it's like, well, somebody can just get in the car and start driving and catch up to them and make it look like they caught up in a fair sense. I don't know if that's that great of an analogy, but so I started to realize, like, man, this narrative is insane. Like I have to at least do something. So I started posting on Twitter and stuff, and I don't have like a big following by any means, and literally just every single person came out of the woodwork and
What's
just
your
started.
tweet?
Like,
you got 1,000 likes. I just saw that you got like 1,000 likes on something.
Yeah, I just posted in the chat over here.
Yeah, good.
He struck a nerve.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is like, you being in the ecosystem long enough, it's like you start to understand like the underpinnings of things and the way things work. Yeah, it's probably buried in there somewhere, but I posted it in the chat if you can find it.
It's more like climate than weather, right? Over time, you start to understand the climate of a region you're in.
Yeah.
The culture of the various tribes of crypto have their own personality and climate to them, and you become acclimated to that rather than the short-term arguments that they're for all the self-serving purposes that we espouse.
1.4 thousand likes.
Yeah, and so I basically was just, trying to understand, okay, like when you really boil down to it, like, okay, great, Solana's a casino. Awesome. That's people go in there and have fun. But like, I can't remember, it was like a few weeks ago, somebody posted like the data, and actually it's not a casino. It's worse than casino. The win rate is much, much lower. So really, if all the excitement, quote unquote, is based on something that's literally worse than a casino, and we're bragging about, oh, we onboarded 500,000 new users. Well, if we're onboarding 500,000 new users and 99.9% of them are losing,
we're disillusioning 499,000 new users.
Exactly. Yeah, we're only confirming their bias from before. And and the interesting thing to me was it was the responses that I got. So I don't know. I mean, it says right here I got 470 responses. So I tried to respond to as many people as I could and ask them. I was like, okay, well, because I'm saying Solana has no culture.
What do you use the chain for, right? That's
every
time someone goes
to is your culture?
They want to shill Hedera, they want to shill, Avalanche or something. I'm like, what do you actually use the chain for? And most of them do not use the chain. It's really remarkable.
Yeah, and on top of that, I'm like, okay, well, what if I'm wrong? Please explain to me what your values are. And I had devs comment on there, and they're like, oh, well, we build fast and stuff, and it's all about
Go
shipping
fast break
product.
thing.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, well, if you build crappy things fast, that's not good. Like, or if you build something that's low quality and you do it fast, and then their response was actually really, I was really shocked by what they said. And they're like, well, it's all gambling anyways. I'm like, well.
Well,
If you think
that's your
the
belief. If
Yeah,
that's
if
what
you
you
think the
seek to
sum of
attract, then
crypto,
sure.
yeah, if that's what, so if the sum of crypto is gambling, well, then we're just onboarding the world to
Why do
a
you?
worse casino. Like
Yeah.
we're just creating
Why
an
are
online
you?
casino that's worse.
Why are you trying to build a better slot machine, right? Like if
Yeah,
that's what you're building, you want to say
I'm
go to market fast so we can win the slot market machine. Like,
yeah,
okay, well you've exposed your biases, right? Thank you for
yeah.
confirming.
And that's fine. Yeah, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with building an online casino, but it's like, but if you're going to build an online casino and then portray it as if it's the next financial system, well, then you're screwing people. Then you're it's a bait and switch, you know. And so I mean, even like Kyle Samani, who I mean, I don't know that much about him, but he even responded. And he's like, "Oh, I'll make a bet with you, blah blah blah. Like how much? You know, I'll bet you $100 million." I'm like, okay, bro. Yeah, I'm
Jeez,
sure.
what a-
Yeah,
I'm sure you know.
your grift has earned you $100 million. I can believe that, but
Yeah,
also like, come on, bro.
yeah,
That's like the
Uh,
sixth grade bully wanting to fight a
yeah,
6-year-old
yeah.
online.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. And they say, you know, so I was, you know, when you post stuff like this, you almost are like, you hold your breath because you're like, man, I could be wrong. You know, I could be 100% wrong. Some people could come in here and literally just prove in every single way, like, nope, this is it. It's this, and this, and you're missing out. You're ignorant. And I'm ready to accept that. But of the 470, I mean, there was probably 3 people that said something of some substance, you know, even like the protocol. I was like, okay, well, they're talking about innovation. I'm like, okay, well, tell me about the innovation. And they're like, well, it's so fast. And I'm like, okay, what innovation is there? Okay,
when it's
that's
running.
TPS. Yeah, they're like, oh, well, we have Jupiter. I'm like, well, what is Jupiter? It's an exchange. Okay, like meme coins. That's not innovation. Nothing, literally nothing that they've said is innovation. I'm like, you're complaining about Ethereum, but Ethereum has actually innovated, created decentralized stable coins. It has AI agents now. It's liquidity pools. Uniswap was innovated. I mean, we can go like, so you guys know I'm preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
So
They didn't create a new target. They just followed the same targets Ethereum's been targeting forever. I've got a real world story for you. So
mhm.
pull up a seat and listen in. I had a friend of mine's son. He's a senior in high school, and he texted me. He's like, "Hey, I'm such and such's son. Can I call you? My dad says you know stuff about crypto, and I was just going to see if you. Of course, I'm going to make time. You know." So got on the phone with him, and I go, "Well, so you're interested?" Yeah. I said, "You're invested already? Did you already, plant some seeds somewhere?" He's like, "Yeah, I just turned 18, so I was able to get a bank and I was able to, get an exchange set up." I'm like, "Well, that's incredible. The best time to plant a tree, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Let me guess, you bought XRP in Solana."
Yeah.
He said, "How did you know?" I said, "Well, probably because you read somewhere that Solana is the fastest blockchain on the planet, and it can do smart contracts better than Ethereum specifically. It said that." And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "You're already buying meme coins, aren't you?" He's like, "How did you know?" And I'm like, "Because that's where the casino is." He's like, "Wow, that's incredible." I said, "Did you say XRP too?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Because it's going to be the international token for banking." How did you know? Yeah. And both times it was because they were shitting on Ethereum and how Ethereum's just a dog, dinosaur dog and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, this kid bought it. And I just kind of, took him by the hand. I said, "Listen, I want you to get on this subreddit. I want you to subscribe to this podcast. If you're on Twitter, I want you to follow these accounts that have these Maverick Lion NFTs." He's like, "Wow, those are so cool." I'm like, "Yeah, they're really cool because they're not a meme. They were created in retrospect to award community members for actually being contributors first. You know, like it means something. Like there's a lot you can learn if you just spend the time to read. And I actually shared in Logri the Bard's tokenomicsexplained.com. I shared Etherator, it was like the origin story of the Mavericks or some write-up from years ago. And he came back and he's like, okay. He's like, I got a lot to learn. I said, well, it's okay if you're playing in the casino, you're young. If you're going to the casino, at least understand that most of your money's going to evaporate because it's designed to take money from you. It's not really designed for much more than that. And he's like, that's okay. I'm not old enough to go to a real casino anyway. And it's like the light went off. Yeah. It's like, that's where the teenagers are going. That's
sure.
You can take
TikTok and all that.
You can take $1. You can take $1 and go do something. And that's all people want to do. I said, just if you can put $50, into a long-term asset and take $5 and go to the casino, that would be a much better long-term bet. And he's like, I agree, I'll do that. So there we go.
Yeah.
And
I have my rabbit hole post. It's usually in the top 5 or 6 pages of my monthly views. It's got a lot of long-term viewership. So I know people are still referencing it around the internet. I certainly do, right?
Yeah.
Just plop in with my Rabbit Hole Explorer's Guide every time I see some applicable wisdom. It's nice to have handy.
It's so good. All right. Moving on down the list. We've got to wrap the show here pretty quick. I only got one left. I did Dr. ETH. Now Captain Crunch Hiker warns us of the latest phishing attack. The A word is gone, but thank you, A word, for always putting in these security pings here. It's important that we do this. This is a duder number 1, Captain Crunch Hiker, brand new fresh fish to the Daily Doots leaderboard. Getting a weekly shout phishing alert. There's an active phishing attack targeting crypto users on X right now. A fake handle for, quote, Second Foundation is posting links to a Telegram group. When you join the group, they claim you need to verify yourself. However, the CAPTCHA always fails. Then they instruct you to copy and paste a command into your Windows command prompt, which downloads a Trojan onto your system. Shit. Stay vigilant and avoid interacting with such messages or commands. Do not share personal information or download anything from untrusted sources. Be careful out there. My gosh, yeah. This talk of a Second Foundation, we didn't even make that a thing. Can you imagine that there's so much news at play at the top levels of the land in the U.S. government that it overshadowed the fact that Lido founder, one of those guys, is coming up with a Second Foundation. I wonder if that's going to get any grassroots. Well, I think that's all for now. Make sure if you get a chance, go ahead and sub and smash the bells around here. If you're on the live stream, jump over to YouTube, throw a thumbs up on that. Stick around after the live stream because we continue the party on the hotel lobby on Discord for a bonus hour of popcorn. It's a fun place to let loose when the parents aren't watching on YouTube. Hi, Mom. On behalf of Ethfinance Daily General Discussion on our Ethereum, my name is JT. Cheers and big hugs from Kansas City.